If you're wondering how much your SMSF can borrow to buy property, you're not alone. The rules around loan-to-value ratios, lender assessments, and compliance requirements can be confusing. In this video, we give you the complete guide to SMSF borrowing limits, so you know exactly where you stand. Let's dive in.
Hey there. So you're thinking about using your self-managed super fund to buy property? You're in exactly the right spot. We're going to cut through all the noise and get straight to the heart of it. How much can your SMSF actually borrow? And let's be honest, this is the question, isn't it? It's the first thing everyone wants to know. It seems simple enough, but the answer, well, it's got a few important layers. And trust me, getting this right is absolutely crucial to unlocking the real potential of your retirement savings. You know, diving into all this can seriously feel like you're trying to navigate a maze. The stakes are pretty high. A smart move can give your nest egg a huge boost, but one wrong turn could lead to financial headaches or compliance nightmares. So today, our job is to give you a clear path right through it all. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to start with the absolute cornerstone of your borrowing power, the concept that really sets the stage for everything else. It's called the loan-to-value ratio, or as you'll hear it a lot, LVR. So what is LVR? Simply put, it's just the percentage of the property's price that the bank is willing to lend you. The rest of it, that's what your SMSF has to cover as the deposit. For most SMSF loans, you'll find that lenders usually cap this somewhere between 70% and 80%. Okay, theory is great, but let's make this real. Let's say your SMSF has its eye on the perfect investment property. Price tag, $600,000. So how does that LVR we just talked about actually work here? And here we go, this lays it out perfectly. If we're working with a pretty standard 80% LVR, the lender is going to finance $480,000 of that price. That means your SMSF has to come up with the other 20%, which is $120,000 for the deposit. But, and this is a big but, that deposit isn't the only cash you need to have ready. Let's look at a real-world case, Sarah. For her $600,000 property, yeah, she had the $120,000 deposit. But on top of that, she needed about another $30,000 to $40,000 just sitting in her fund as cash. Why? For all those extra costs, stamp duty, legal fees, you name it. So remember this, the total cash you need is always more than just that deposit figure. Okay, so the LVR gives us the basic math, the starting point. But for a lender, that's not the whole story. They need to be absolutely sure your fund can actually handle the loan. And that brings us to what I call the lender's checklist, basically a full financial health check of your SMSF. So what are they looking for? Well, first, they want to see a healthy asset base. We're talking a minimum of around $150,000 to $250,000. They'll also dig into your contribution history, are they regular, and they'll project your future cash flow. Plus, of course, they'll check if your fund is already carrying any other debt. And you know what? Of all those things, cash flow is king. It's huge. A fund with regular, strong contributions, say over $25,000 a year, looks really solid to a lender. It's seen as low risk. On the flip side, if your contributions are all over the place, totally unpredictable, that's a red flag. Take James. He was a business owner, had plenty for a deposit, but got knocked back at first. Why? His contributions were too irregular. He actually had to restructure his strategy before he could get the green light. All right, so we've talked about your fund's health. Now let's talk about the loan itself. Because the fine print, things like how long the loan is for and the interest rate, that stuff has a massive impact on how much you can sustainably borrow. Just look at this table. It makes it so clear. On a $400,000 loan, if you stretch the term out from 15 years to 30 years, wow, look at that. The monthly repayment drops by nearly $1,000. And that lower monthly payment makes your fund look way healthier to a lender, which could mean they're willing to lend you more money in the first place. Now, here's something you've got to budget for. SMSF loan rates are almost always higher than a regular home loan. Lenders just see them as more complex, a bit more of a risk. You could be looking at rates anywhere from just over 6% to well over 8.5%. And believe me, even a 1% difference on a big loan can easily add hundreds to your monthly repayment, which directly eats into your total borrowing capacity. Here's a strategy some people use, an interest-only period. For the first 1 to 5 years, you're only paying the interest, not touching the principal. This keeps your repayments super low at the start, and it can really stretch your borrowing power. But, and it's a big but, you need a plan for when that period ends. Look at Maria's case. She used a 5-year interest-only term specifically to build up a cash buffer in her fund. That way, she was more than ready when the much higher principal and interest repayments finally kicked in. Okay, we've covered the money side of things. Now we need to talk about what might be the most critical piece of this whole puzzle. This isn't just about what a bank will lend you. Everything, and I mean everything, is governed by a super strict legal framework from the Australian Taxation Office. And it's all there for one reason: to protect your retirement savings. Anytime an SMSF borrows for property, it has to be done through something called a Limited Recourse Borrowing Arrangement, or LRBA. Think of it like a safety firewall. The property is held in a separate special trust. So, if the worst happens and the loan defaults, the lender can only come after that specific property. The rest of your super fund's assets, they're totally safe and sound. It's a non-negotiable protection. And the foundation for all these rules is something called the sole purpose test. It sounds simple, but it is powerful. It means every single thing your SMSF does, every investment it makes, has to be for one reason and one reason only: to provide for your retirement. That's it. No personal benefit for you or your family before you retire. Period. And there's no gray area here. It's black and white. You can't live in it. Nope. You can't rent it to your cousin for a cheap mate's rate, and you definitely can't use it as your weekend beach house. Any of that stuff is a massive violation and comes with some seriously heavy penalties. Just listen to Tom's story. It's the perfect cautionary tale. He tried to get his SMSF to buy a property from his daughter, but at a family discount. Big mistake. That breaks what's called the arm's length rule, which says every transaction has to be done at full market value, no special deals. The ATO saw it as a sneaky way to access super early, and his fund got hit with massive penalties. You just can't do it. So let's pull all of this together, shall we? When you think about your SMSF's borrowing capacity, it really comes down to 3 main pillars. First, the LVR. That sets your baseline. It tells you the maximum possible loan. Second, your fund's actual financial health. That's the reality check that determines what a lender will really offer you. And third, compliance. This is the non-negotiable rulebook that everything has to follow. Look, figuring out your borrowing limits is that foundational first step. It takes this whole idea from being something vague and turns it into a real, concrete plan. So now that you know the framework, the real question is, what's your next step going to be?